Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So, Thor was the first Marvel movie I saw in theaters. I've always loved superheroes since I was a kid. I had seen some bootleg versions of Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, and my cousin was a huge fan of Norse mythology and loved Vikings, so we decided to go check out Thor in theaters, and I really enjoyed it. And I've enjoyed the movie every time I've seen it up until this viewing, I think. And I'm not sure if it's the movie or that my expectations for Marvel movies have changed that has affected my viewing this time. I do think the movie doesn't hold up as well when compared to where the Marvel movies are now. I do think it's a good movie though, but there are a few problems that really stand out. So let's get into it. This is going to be my review of the first Thor.
In every generation, there is a chosen one girl in all the world. She alone will review the movies, TV shows, and books of geek culture. I am the chosen girl.
So the movie opens up in media res with Jane in the desert, and then we go back to Asgard for Thor to see how he got there. So Jane was already in the desert, and she was searching for some sort of weather phenomenon, and then happens to just come across Thor in the desert when the Bifrost opens. But she doesn't know the Bifrost is going to open, so what was she looking for out in the desert, like, to begin with? That's something that we never find out. Is the movie saying that Asgardians were, like, always opening the Bifrost to New Mexico, and that's what, like, drew her there? Or because it's just, like, happenstance that she runs into Thor when the Bifrost opens up in the middle of the desert? She was already in the desert. What was she looking for before the Bifrost opens up? We never find out. I don't think it has anything to do with this movie, but it bothers me because it makes it way too convenient that she just happens to be there. And then she wants answers from him. Answers for what? On something she didn't know existed? On a theory that she was developing before she even knew about the Bifrost? I don't know. I don't like it, but, you know, you gotta kind of just go with it. But I really wish they would have, like, kind of confirmed what it is she was already looking for. If it was the Asgardians already coming to New Mexico, or if it was something else that she was looking into. I just feel like, what is going on here with the Jane storyline? Then we see Thor about to be crowned King of Asgard, but Odin stops just in time when he, like, senses that the Frost Giants have, like, invaded the vault room. And there's a brief shot of the Destroyer, like, taking out the Frost Giants, but it's like blink and you miss it. And I kind of wish we would have maybe got like a little bit better setup for the Destroyer robot thing before it comes back at the end and Thor has to fight it. So that's kind of like one of my little, like, nitpicks, is that, like, if you literally blink it, then you'll miss the Destroyer and you'll just think, where the heck did this thing come from at the very end? So I wish they could have, like, set that up as a bit more of a defensive threat and, like, how it worked and everything. But that's just kind of like a little nitpick. So I like Loki in this movie. I like how he, like, kind of manipulates Thor into going into Jotunheim, and then how he, like, uses his illusion magic in the battles, and, you know, it's fun and he's clever. And I think Tom Hiddleston really nails the dramatic scenes. I much prefer, like, this type of version of Loki in the earlier to, like, where we have Loki now, like, on his show. I'm not sure I follow Loki's plan of, like, luring the Frost Giants to Asgard so that he can kill Laufey and prove himself to Odin, because, like, isn't that what Thor went to Jotunheim to do also? But it's like, also, if they have, like, a truce with Jotunheim, then why the need to kill Laufey to begin with if, like, they weren't doing anything wrong to Asgard? So it seems like, I'm not sure what his plan is. It doesn't really make any sense. Why would he, does he just, like, make this plan up as the movie goes along? Because if so, that's not a very good plan. And then we find out he is the son of Laufey, so it's kind of like he's just going to kill his real dad to prove to his adopted dad that he loves him more. I don't understand. So, but I do like the relationship that we get between Loki and Odin, which does continue throughout the rest of the MCU, to a place where I think Loki accepts himself and who he is and feels validated as being a son of Odin. Up until we get the Loki show, of course, where none of that happened. But we'll get to the Loki show much later down the road on this reviews. But anyways, so back to this movie. I like Lady Sif and the Warriors 3, but they're pretty useless and lack any kind of like charm. Like they're not given like much to do anyway. They have a couple boring scenes of talking about how they disagree with Thor's banishment and whatever, and then they like show up at the end. But it's kind of like they're just there almost because Thor needs to have friends, right? You know, Sif is the girl that needs to prove herself. Volstagg eats a lot and is jovial. Fandral is kind of sort of concerned for Thor, but it doesn't do anything else. And then you have Hogan that's like brooding all the time and is like this, you know, stereotypical like Asian warrior type. And so they're just kind of like stereotypes, and I don't really like that, and they don't actually get better really. Maybe Sif gets a little bit better, but I wish we would have maybe gotten more, I don't know if you need more time with them, but just like little things to make them stand out a bit more, right? I do like when they all try to fight the Destroyer in the end. I think Sif gets like a nice little moment where she's like proud of herself because she thinks she like defeated it, and then it turns like its head around and it's still alive. That's kind of a cool moment at the end too. But yeah, we need either less of them or more character development with them. So Thor and friends go to Jotunheim to confront the frost giants, and I like when Thor like says, like Heimdall, you know, says, you know, be careful you die, and I like Thor's response of, I have no plans to die today, and Heimdall's just like, no one does. Like that's kind of a funny like little line, and for some reason that line always sticks with my head of Thor saying, I have no plans to die today. I think that maybe comes up, or there's something similar like that happens in another movie, I think. So I kind of do like that. And I do like Heimdall. He doesn't get much to do in this movie. He has a little part at the end where he, you know, unfreezes himself, takes out some frost giants, and opens up the Bifrost for Thor. That's all. But we do get more of him down the line in the other movies, but I do like Heimdall. And I like the battle on Jotunheim. I think the frost giants look cool and they're threatening. They kind of remind me of like the White Walkers from Game of Thrones, but it's kind of this cool like ice world. They have like these ice powers and stuff. And of course this is where Loki suspects that he might be a frost giant because one of them touches him on the arm, and instead of freezing him, his arm like turns blue like a frost giant. So that's kind of a cool like reveal, I think. And then Odin comes in to save the day, and I love the scene where Odin banishes Thor. It's like well acted, it's like emotional, family drama stuff going on, and he tells Thor that he is unworthy of, you know, and he strips his powers, and he banishes him to New Mexico. Why New Mexico? Again, this is a place like, is this a place where the Asgardians like frequent? Like is this why Jane is there investigating something that hadn't happened yet? Like I'm curious, does the Bifrost have like a save locations like GPS? Or did Odin just like pick one, or like why New Mexico? None of this is ever explained. But it's a great scene, very well acted, and I think it really kind of hones in on the overall theme of this story. And I like when Loki confronts Odin about being a frost giant. I just love the scene. I can feel the emotions. I can feel the heartbreak from Loki, the anger that he has towards Odin. But as soon as when Odin passes out, he's like super concerned. Like it really shows that Loki is like not just a typical villain. He is a complex character with lots of emotions. I wish his plan was a little bit better and clarified. But I really do like that scene. So then we get back to New Mexico, and Jane keeps hitting Thor with the car, which is kind of like a funny little joke, and Darcy tases him. So there's some decent comedy like throughout here. You know, Thor's confused. He doesn't have his powers. He sounds like a crazy person. And then S.H.I.E.L.D. comes in and takes away all of Jane's research. Again, was she researching the Bifrost before she even knew it existed? Why are they taking away her research if the Bifrost thing just happened? Like, what was she researching? We never know. I need to know. I need answers. This whole plot doesn't make any sense. But we get the return of Agent Coulson, because in Iron Man 2 he mentions going off to New Mexico. So Coulson's pretty fun. I do like when Thor calls him Son of Coal. That's cool. And also I like Eric Selvig. You know, he mentions that he knew a guy in gamma radiation, and then S.H.I.E.L.D. showed up and they was never seen of again. Of course, I think it's like a little Easter egg for Bruce Banner. And of course this movie kind of takes place during same time as the events of the Incredible Hulk. Although when we meet Banner and Selvig in the Avengers, I know they don't have any scenes together, but there's also no mention that like they ever even knew each other. So is this Bruce Banner they're talking about? Or I think it's just an Easter egg that they set up and didn't go anywhere with. Now I know a lot of people don't like the Jane Foster character, but I actually like Jane. I think she's fine in this movie. I love Natalie Portman. I do think that her relationship with Thor is like unsubstantial. Like I think she just likes him because he's a hot god, and I think he just likes her because she's hot and smart. And they maybe have like that one scene on the rooftop where they're like kind of bonding, but it's really more just like Thor explaining the Nine Realms to her. So I wish they did have like a bit more chemistry, more bonding, like really understand why they actually like each other other than they're attractive people. But I still think Jane is like a decent character. At least she's like a smart scientist, and so that's pretty cool. And also I love Darcy. But Darcy, like, she starts off in this movie as like a political science major that happens to be interning for this physicist. But by the time we get to WandaVision, she's like a leading expert in like this weird science physicist stuff going on. So I don't know, maybe she spent the 5 years in the blip studying. But I do love Darcy. So Thor tries to get Mjolnir back by breaking into the shield site. And I actually really like this scene a lot. Even though Thor doesn't have his powers, it shows that he's still skillful. He's still very strong. He takes out like all of their guards instantly. So I really like that whole scene. And it's like raining and then they're in the mud. And it's just kind of like a nice action scene because Thor doesn't have his powers, but we still like need to show like how strong he is. And I do like the heartbreak on his face when he realizes he's not worthy of wielding Mjolnir. That's kind of like a sad moment. And then of course we get like a cameo of Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye. I do wish we maybe would have got like a little bit more of him in this movie just because to set him up for the Avengers, because like at the very beginning of the Avengers he's like immediately mind controlled and nobody cares. So like we could have cared more if we had gotten to know him a bit better, and they could have done that in this episode. But still a pretty cool cameo. I still like it. And then Loki comes to talk to Thor and everything, and this is kind of like where Thor starts to like learn his lessons of what it is to be a true hero and sacrifice and everything. It's what he needs to learn in order to regain his powers at the end and be worthy of Mjolnir. A little bit of humility and humbleness and caring for other people, right? So I do like that we kind of get that character progression between failing to pick up Mjolnir and then the talk that he has with Selvig. I think that kind of like humbles him a bit and kind of turns him into where he needs to go on the path. I mean, he still has a lot of work to do, but at least he admits that he has work to do by the end of it. So Loki sends the destroyer to Earth to kill Thor, but because the Warriors 3 and Sif went there to get him, but as soon as Thor gets his powers back, he like takes out the destroyer easily, so it's not really that much of a threat. But of course the real end fight is back on Asgard versus Loki, and that's kind of a cool scene too, because Thor sacrifices the Rainbow Bridge and getting to see Jane again in order to save Jotunheim, the place that he was willing to destroy earlier in the movie. He's now had a change of heart and realizes you can't do that. So it kind of comes full circle on his journey for this movie. And then Loki like lets go, and then we like presume that Loki's dead, but we all know he's not. And he does say earlier to Heimdall that he knows many ways to get in and out of Asgard unseen. So obviously that'll be useful later in the movies. So that was kind of an interesting ending. And of course Odin wakes up and Thor, tells him he's not ready to be king yet, and he's learned his lesson. And without the Bifrost, he might not be able to see Jane again, but that was a sacrifice that a hero makes. So I do kind of like Thor's journey. I think it's a bit clunky, but I think it does kind of set up the character pretty well in this movie. So overall, I still enjoy this movie, but there are some problems. Thor doesn't have his powers for most of the movie. He's just kind of wandering around, cracking jokes in New Mexico. What is Jane's research? What are we doing there? Loki's plan doesn't make any sense. The Destroyer's kind of lame. Sif and the Warriors don't really do much. And I don't really think the comedy holds up that well either. Like, I remember in the theater when he says, "I need a horse." Like, I remember that being hilarious, like, the first time. But now it's almost kind of, like, cringe a little bit. So, that I think the movie hasn't held up as well compared to the rest of the, like, where we're at with the MCU. I still think it's a pretty decent movie, though. There's still a lot of fun here. I love Darcy. She has some great lines, like the battle on Jotunheim and Thor's fight at the Shield site. You know, I really like the theme of fathers and sons and trying to live up to your parents' expectations and all of that. That's all really good stuff, too. And Chris Hemsworth does a good job in the role. I mean, he will grow into it more as the movies progress. In this one, they like dyed his like beard and eyebrows blonde to match his hair, which kind of just like looks unnatural. So I'm glad they don't do that going forward with the character. But I do think Hemsworth gives a pretty good performance. He's very kind of charming in some ways, and obviously has the physical presence of being Thor. And I do like where we go with the Thor character in the future, but it's kind of weird seeing this version of Thor and where he starts out compared to where he is now, but I still like it though. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the first Thor movie. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel for more Marvel movie and show reviews. Also, if you want to help support the channel, be sure to check the link down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks for watching, everybody, and until next time, this mortal form has grown weak. I need sustenance. Bye.